Hi. So my paper is about abortion and um, basically the whole entire paper is pretty much about a few philosophers that we've touched on through the semester, like House, um, Thompson, and I threw in Kant as well. Um, so basically, um, why I'm writing this paper is because abortion has really always been an important issue to me. Um, I think it's important to a lot of people, no matter whether they're pro life or they're not. Um, I think because everyone has so many different opinions, it is such like a tearing issue, especially like in today's society. Um, so it's really important. It's not a thing that should be overlooked by any means. Um, to me, I think when I think of abortion, I know there's so many different ways that people think, oh, if they're in the third trimester, then it shouldn't be allowed, or if it's before the fetus is fully formed, it's fine, things like that. So everybody has their own different opinions, which is totally okay. Um, Personally, I do not think that abortion should be um, legal just because, I was raised in a Christian home and I was raised that pro life is always the answer, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter whether the baby was conceived through rape or by not practicing safe sex, whether there would be birth defects later on. Now, I know, you run into the situations where, well, could it harm the mother? Things like that. I think in today's society, that there's so much technology that a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, um, if there is going to be something wrong with the mom, then I think they know those things ahead of time. Um, I mean, don't quote me on that, but I think like that's where our technology is today, is that we are really prepared for those kind of things to happen. Um, so anyways, I guess the gist of my paper is I've just included a lot of facts and basically a lot of my religious beliefs, why I think that abortion shouldn't be legal. Um, for one, I think a lot of people, as Christians, they always say like pro life, pro life, pro life, just because, that's how they should, that's how they were raised. Um, but, I've done some further research, and in my paper, I included all these facts, so these might not be spot on. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was around 86% is what women have abortions because the child is going to be inconvenient to them. The remaining percent was because of rape or other things. So to take that percentage, that high of a percentage, and people are having abortions just because the baby's going to be inconvenient, it's a two-way street. You had sex and you knew there was a chance. You could have practiced it probably a little bit safer. You could have just not done it at all. So, I think those are things that people don't think about. I know, like, I get sex is a great thing, and, people really share, like, a connection through that. But if you're not ready to take on that responsibility, it's kind of something that goes hand in hand. So, to me, that's one reason why I think, abortion's kind of like shouldn't really be an option. So another thing with abortion is there's so many different arguments about when the fetus is formed, when the baby's considered to be independent, things of those nature. So I was always brought up knowing or thinking that from the moment the baby is conceived is when the life matters. It's a valuable life. It has a purpose. And with that purpose, you can go back into biblical scriptures and see that, you know, God did say, there's some Psalms about it and Proverbs, but it talks about how God knit us together in our mother's wombs. He knew the plans he had for us even before we were knitted together in our mother's wombs. And to think that, you know, I think it's a hard concept for me to think that someone thinks that this is their child, because it is their child, but ultimately it's God's child. So when you think of it in that nature, it's kind of like, well, do I really have a say over this? Should I really have a say over this? Because obviously this is all happening for a reason. I'm having this child for a reason. So I think it just comes down, a lot of it comes down to that for me. And there's just some of the other facts that I read, like, you know, a few years ago, I think it was like 115,000 abortions happened a day. And to think that that many lives are being taken, and for it to not be because of an extreme situation, maybe, such as rape, you know, like I said, the 86%, that's pretty high. And they're just not having the baby because it's going to be inconvenient. That's really sad to me. So I think about it in those terms, so that like really does affect me. And I think that's why I'm writing this paper, because it is really important to me. It's important that people know, you know, why people do have abortions. You know, there are those certain cases, don't get me wrong, but there has been a lot of studies done on this, obviously, and a lot of people are just having them because they're there, you know. So I think that's a lot of why I wanted to write this paper, because I really wanted to express like my religious beliefs on why this is so important to me. I don't have a specific answer as to where we should go with this issue. Besides that, I obviously don't think abortion should be allowed. Or things like Planned Parenthood, I don't think those things should be able to be around. But with President Trump just being elected, I think, you know, he was pro-life, so I think a lot of that's going to kind of determine what happens to all these Planned Parenthoods. So I think, you know, it all kind of just comes back to politics, and that's where things like situations like abortions, where those types of things are handled, because I mean, that's how our country's run. It's all done through legislation. So I don't really have a specific idea of where we should go with this. Besides that, I just don't think it should be around, like I said. But I think it's definitely going to be something that's going to be brought up and probably changed with a Republican president in there. But yeah, I really look forward to you reading my paper, and that's my take on abortion. So